This episode of the Kingdom of Graph is sponsored by the Autograph of the Month Club, where for just $20 a month, you can get a signed 8x10 photo in the mail. Please visit them at www.autographofthemonth.com. Use promo code KINGDOM to get a bonus welcome autograph with your first subscription to Autograph of the Month Club. Listeners, prepare thyself, for you are about to witness two fine gentlemen muse upon the fandom realm, for you have ventured upon the Kingdom of Graph. Hosted by Marco Guerrero and Michael Berkowitz.
We're going to be live. Welcome. This is Kingdom of Graph. I'm Marco Guerrero.
I'm Michael Berkowitz.
And introducing today, Chris Grace.
Welcome.
Hello. So yeah, we didn't get much time. I forgot to tell you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh.
So
Hey.
normally it's like, I'm Marco and he's Michael. And you'd be like, hey, I'm Chris. Yay.
Oh, yeah. High energy. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris.
And I'm like, oh, wait. As I'm like going through that, I'm like, crap, I forgot to tell him to say his name. So I'm like, I'll do it.
We keep doing this thing where we actually are just chatting and like being normal people and just talking to each other, and it kind of screws everything up.
Yeah, I think the worst one was when we had a Nick Stahl on, right?
Uh-huh.
And we're just chatting, and then we're like, oh wait, crap, like it's time to start. We're going, and I'm like, crap, now I don't even know what to start. I'm like, let's go straight into an audience question.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got an audience question.
All right.
Trying to hang that see that shelf back there?
Right.
Oh no.
The anchor, the drywall anchor keeps pulling out. So.
Oh man, you need like.
I was in the middle of doing that right when this call started.
You need to get one of the ones that actually I can help. There's these ones because I had the same problem.
Uh-huh.
And it's like this. So there's a downside. You got to make a bigger hole in your wall. That's the downside. But it like is this like wing?
There you go.
Yeah, that thing.
Didn't work.
What? How did the wing not work?
It worked for the other. There's two shelves above that. It's worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Because the one that's still hanging let me see, right there. That one is working. But the hole for this one, I think, is too large, so that now, it's not. Anyway, I think I have to make a new hole and move the whole shelf like down an inch.
Just buy a bigger wing.
I could do that as well. Do they make different sizes of these?
I think they do.
Yeah. Is that the one that like folds and then opens inside the wall?
This goes in like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you pull it and it does that. And then it's like zip ties this up here and you break it off.
So there's ones, before you buy a bigger one, there's ones that are actually like screws. So you can actually put the wing in and then screw it and it'll like snap together to the wall. Because it'll like, the screw tension will pull the wing to the wall.
There's also other ones that are like, the circular. Then as you screw, it kind of it widens.
See, you never know what you're going to get on this show. Now you get handyman advice.
Yeah.
People come for the entertainment and they get home tips. So
because these shelves are the beginning of my you guys already have this, but everyone now for your Zoom background, you have to have shelves with all of your interests.
Yeah.
But a lot of my interests are books, and books really put the test to wall shelves.
Yes.
All right. Well, then right there, what are your 3 top books in your collection?
Oh, well, this is just a collection of the nearest books to the shelf that have been put up there. So
you're like, wait a second, was I supposed to read these books?
Well, so these represent interests that I currently have during the pandemic. So one is Dishoom, which is a Indian cookbook.
All right.
There's a restaurant in London called Dishoom, which is like one of my favorite restaurants that I've ever been to. Then I have the comic book From Hell by Alan Moore, which just was given a new color edition, and the art was like revamped by Eddie Campbell. So I'm reading through that again. And then above that is a board game called Wavelength that you can't really see that, but I've been meaning to play that. And then there's a collection of books there called Card College by Robert Joby that are like for people that want to learn card magic.
There you go.
So, but those are all books that I've been intending to read during lockdown.
I just got a collection of all of the hardbacks for all of the Firefly graphic novels.
Oh, cool.
So, I just got those.
Also, I don't know why my video occasionally goes to like retro mode, like I'm in Sunset Boulevard or something.
Well, I keep wanting to grab some 3D glasses.
Yeah,
I think it's just you keep activating your filters. So you got like your different tones, and one time you're gonna just have like a smiley face, and it's just
right. All of my Snapchat filters,
exactly,
which I actually have used in a couple of like online comedy shows. A couple of improv shows that I've done, we've like used Snapchat filters to like make ourselves into characters.
There you go.
That's actually a great idea.
Yeah, it's fun.
So you have a background in improv. That's where I first met you in New York.
Yep.
And you did. You guys were so funny every weekend. I'd watch it, and for a lot of you out there, improv is basically you go on stage. Well, I'll let you explain. What is improv? How would you explain it?
I do long form improv, which is basically we get one suggestion from the audience and create a 30 to 45-minute show based off that. So it's very different than like short form, like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Mm-hmm. But this is like the sort of Chicago originated improv comedy that a lot of, I would say, modern comedians have come from. So everyone from, Tina Fey to, like almost everybody you see on most sitcoms these days either come through Chicago or New York long form improv, or they come through LA based like Groundlings style improv. But it's all similar in that you just make up a show on the spot. It's really more like sports than anything else, in that you just sort of get used to creating comedy within a certain sort of set of guidelines that you agree upon with your fellow performers, as opposed to like pre-planning anything. Right. And then it sounds so much fun the way I just described it. Just agreed upon guidelines result in comedy.
And it's funny, and I took a class just for fun. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to finish it, my graduation, because I got I did a charity auction to where I got to be a extra on Raising Hope, and it was a series finale, and so I got to be in the whole series finale as like a wedding guest, and I actually got like a lot of screen time in the episode.
Very cool,
and it was fun because I guess I did the donations. I got to wander around the whole set, hang out. I don't know. I told this story last time, didn't I, Michael? Like once.
Yeah, I think so. It's still funny.
You just wandered into areas you weren't supposed to be in.
Well, they gave me free reign of the entire studio, and I think what it was is they thought I was an executive there, and since it was like the last episode, they thought they were all interviewing to be on the next show or something. And so, and then they're like, "Oh wait, you're so and so."
Well, I will say one thing I've learned from being on sets is that to a certain degree, like if you just kind of act like you're supposed to be there, most of the time people don't say anything to you. It's less true in like Los Angeles, where there's like studios and you have to pass through security to get in. But like in New York City, when people are shooting just out on the street, you could just be like, go up to somebody and be like, "Hey, where's Crafty?" And they'll just be like, "Oh, it's around here."
Yeah.
Not that I would tell anyone to do this, but I think the best way to do it would be go with a like carry-on luggage, and go to the first person and say, "Hey, dude, can you tell me where wardrobe is? They wanted to look at some of my clothes." And they'll be like, "Okay." And then while you're there, and where's craft services? And then just go right to craft services and have some food.
Nice. Yeah, I actually saw a thing just this week about this guy who'd snuck into like every Super Bowl since the first one.
Oh.
And like by the time it was like 2000, like the 14th Super Bowl, like the NFL started to catch on, and so they started like hiring private detectives to find him, and like and stuff like that. But there's even like there was one thing where I forget who it was, what team, but one of the other players on the other team, on one team, invited him to the sideline. So he was on the sideline, and then when he saw that the other team was going to win, he switched to the other side and ended up with a photo of him carrying the coach to the center field as their like,
Oh my God.
like this guy had this profession of just sneaking into the Super Bowl.
So this is improv in real life.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way I treated improv. It's like, I'm not a good liar, but I'm good. Like when I was in sales, I could play a part improv wise. And as long as I could just act like I was playing a part on improv, it actually worked for me. Because it just reminded me of sales. And
So you just lied a lot as a salesman.
well, I wouldn't say I never lied. I was the kind of salesperson that liked to educate people. But there was times where I would play pranks on customers. Like there'd be like I'd want to like test out like a psychological question, like, all right, do people actually hear the difference between this stereo system and that stereo system, right? Like a $3,000 system versus like a $200 system, right? And I'd be like, I just want to know. So I'd go up to the $3,000 system first, play a song. I'm like, that sounds great, right? And they're like, yeah, it sounds good. Then I go over to like the $300 one, play the same song. I'm like, this one sounds great too. And you hear how with this one, it's so clear you can hear the bells. And they're like, wait, I can hear the bells. Wow, this one is so much nicer. And I'm like, see, and I found out that like 99% of the people really couldn't hear the difference. They just assumed they did. And, stuff like that, I would.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some degree of audiophile like discernment about talking about like when you get to the level of like you have to have the right digital cables for your spitif whatever. I think a lot of that is audiophiles telling themselves that they can hear the difference to justify all the money they spend.
I've heard arguments of people comparing square nuts to round nuts on the back of speaker cables. Like when you're screwing down the speaker cable to the speaker, like if you use a round nut instead of a square nut, it actually sounds better.
I mean, there is like they do sell like digital audio cables that are like high end, which is very strange to me because like the concept of digital audio is that it's digital. Just ones and zeros. So it really shouldn't be a question of like physics. But also this folds a current theory I have in general is that people that are kind of in any field of interest kind of get more and more picky about what they like and don't like to sort of prove that there is a difference between the things that they like and don't like. And what I mean by that is like, was it last year or 2 years ago that the movie Venom came out?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Okay, so I am not the biggest superhero movie fan. I sort of like them, but a lot of them I find really boring. Mm-hmm. And I thought Venom was fine. Like I enjoyed it when I saw it. It was during the AMC A-list heyday, which seems like 10 years ago, but it was a time when I would just go see any movie because it was, I was paying just like a monthly fee. But like, I thought Venom was super fun and whatever. And it got so much flack from my like comic book obsessed fans. And I remember thinking like, is it really so much worse than the other movies you like? Or are you just trying to say that like, this movie's bad, which means the ones that I like are really good.
It's all tribalism. It's like tribalism and everything. I mean, I'm really big into crypto right now, and everybody's like, "Oh, you have to be into this one only or that one only." And if you like this crypto, you're stupid. It's very tribalistic. And I think it's the same thing. You have your Marvel, your DC, you have your old school, new school. We like as a society and people. Obviously, we like our tribes, right? Like, it's we break everything down, and that's where I realized after running those experiments in the sales, right? We all have our qualities, our niches. Like I can hear the difference, right? Because I studied it. I had an ear for it. I could hear the difference between a $3,000 system and a $300 one all day long because that's what I did all day long. But have me go open up a car, change oil, look at an engine, I'll be like, whatever the hell that is. Or have me like compare one painting to another painting, and I'll be like, I'll stick with my, art prints that I have here from pop culture stuff rather than, like the Mona Lisa. If you had me choose my Princess Bride or the Mona Lisa on my wall, I'm going to take my Princess Bride print all day long.
Yeah, although I would suggest you to take the Mona Lisa. Because then you could sell it and get as many.
You
can
get a couple more of the Princess Bride ones.
You could get
me one.
I would say you could probably get at least one more Princess Bride print for the cost of the Mona Lisa.
Yeah, it's a pretty even trade.
I don't know what you paid for it, but I'd say it's pretty
I
close.
was lucky. I got it on the first commission, so it doesn't go for the $1,000 like it does now.
Yeah, thanks for that one.
Yeah, I would say that I don't know a lot about art, but I would guess that the Mona Lisa is worth at least $2,000.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Which do you watch a lot of Netflix? Have you seen the new show Lupin?
I do. No, it's on my list.
So good
to watch.
It is so good.
Yeah. In fact, we watched a little bit, like 3 or 4 minutes of the opening, just because I was asking my husband if he wanted to watch it, and he is definitely interested. And I was like, are they shooting this in the actual Louvre at the beginning? Like, because if it's not, then it's an insane set. Right. It's kind of unbelievable either way. It's either like they're shooting in the Louvre or they built a set looks extremely expensive to look like the Louvre.
I mean, I was curious at first because, it goes back to the whole thing. I mean, I only knew Lupin from Lupin the Third in the anime, and
I only know Lupin from the arcade video game Cliffhanger, which is a Dragon's Lair Laserdisc style video game that uses footage from, I think it's called Castle Cagliostro or something, which is a Lupin movie.
Okay.
But it was a thing of like, this guy's chasing people in car chases and stuff, and you've got to move the joystick left at the right spot or right. And if you don't, he dies. I don't know if you play any Dragon's Lair.
Mid-90s arcade, everything, even like Mortal Kombat had like the people were digitally or like videotaped and then put into the game.
Yep.
But no, I guess Lupin was a series of books by a French writer. And so like, and again, everybody's like, well, Lupin can't be black, that whole, thing. And they're like, because it's a Japanese anime. And then like, well, no, originally it was this and originally it was that. And, and even in this case, this guy is playing a character inspired by the Lupin books. Like the Lupin books are a thing in the show. So it's not like, anyways, it's just that old debate of whether or not, whitewashing characters and whatnot.
Yeah. I think I almost feel like the guy in Ocean's like 13 or 12, I feel like there's a character that's kind of supposed to be Lupin-like.
Right. That master thief that does everything with a dramatic flair. Like the whole gentleman, the gentleman thief is what is what the books are called. And it's kind of.
I feel like in the Ocean's 13, he's called something like the Coyote or something. Has a similar name.
Yeah. Which I think
the best one is the little guy that can just fit into like anything. He's the best. Right. That's the one that matters.
Well, isn't Lupin mean wolf or coyote? I know, like in
Lupin, I think means wolf.
Yeah,
Lupine certainly does. That little guy has a cameo in Ocean's 8, I believe.
Yeah, that's I love the fact that was the one person that they brought back.
Yeah,
from the they're like, this is our little our extra little twist is that he's gonna be the one to come in and help the all women team.
Yeah,
it was just great. I love that part.
To circle back about Venom and stuff, I'm the same way. I either like something or I don't like it. Like I don't try to be overcritical. I try to find something good in everything. But same with movies, like especially these are popcorn movies. I don't try to deep too much into them. And like, it's not gonna be Shakespeare. You know what I mean? Like in a sense, like
Well, like when you talk about tribalism, I feel like I haven't seen Wonder Woman 84 yet, but like it seemed like the or even like the all-female Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like people get their knives out for certain kinds of things before. I'm sure that Wonder Woman 84 is
Well, see, I like
whatever.
the
People think it's flawed or it's an hour too long or whatever, but like, I don't know.
well, like, see, I was a fan of the female Ghostbusters, right? But Wonder Woman 84, I went into that wanting to love it, right? Like,
Yeah.
but there was a lot of flaws just from a movie film standpoint, not comic book movie, not a female movie,
Yeah.
just in a movie in general. There was a lot of.
I guess the thing that I haven't seen it yet, but I guess the thing is when I hear people say like, oh, it was too long. Like, what are the top 3 criticisms of Wonder Woman 84?
I would say the top 3 are. I would say the top 3 are the editing was terrible.
Right.
Okay.
There's a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of like I know like big ones were like, yeah, it's just like there's fight scenes where things don't make sense. Like she'll lose something and then in the next scene it's on her again, and
Yeah.
it just was pieced together poorly.
Tone wise,
the story
there was like 5 different
storyline.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, and that storyline. It just everything was pieced together where it was like we started with one story and then in the middle we had a separate story, and then at the end all of a sudden we had a father and son story, and it was just like,
and then the villains had
doing?
zero time to develop, and they were like stupid villains to begin with. Like,
actually sounds like it should have been a HBO series or something.
Yeah, like
it just, I don't know. We talked about this on another one of our shows, and my thing is I kind of agree with you, Chris. I won't tell anybody don't see Wonder. I think it's worth it. Go see it. Like, enjoy the movie. It's a movie. People put time, people put effort into it. Like, go see it, enjoy it. Don't be overly critical of it. Am I gonna want to watch it again? No, I'm not gonna want to watch it a second time. But was it worth it to watch it? Yeah, it was absolutely worth it to watch it. I just think, for me personally, the problem and where Wonder Woman struggles is because they're still taking the Wonder Woman series as a prequel series. You know she's fine. Like, nothing's gonna happen. Like, she's already been in Justice League. That's gonna happen later on. Like,
right.
So there's that. You lose that kind of excitement of ooh, what could happen.
I guess the thing that I'm trying to figure out with like criticism of art, because I'm actually very critical in general, because I also think about like from the standpoint of creating this stuff as well. I do think once you've made something like a TV show or a movie, you can be more critical of the craft elements, but much more forgiving of the just knowing how hard it is to make anything.
Yeah.
But I am trying to figure out, because I think what I've come to as a conclusion is that actually a lot of people's criticisms of a movie are almost like after the fact. So like they like or dislike the movie, and then they try to figure out the rational reasons why they liked it or just didn't like it. Because a lot of what I hear about a certain project, for example, might be that it was too long, or that there are too many storylines, or that like what you said, you didn't feel any sense of danger with Wonder Woman, right? But like those are very true to me of the Marvel movies. Because like in the middle of one of those Avengers movies, there was this fight between like Hulk and Loki where he was just slamming Loki around. And I was like, what am I watching? Like none of these people is ever going to like really, nothing's going to happen to them. And then the time that when something really happened to a bunch of people, I was like, I want this to be the last movie. Let's end it right here.
You wanted it to end at the snap?
I wanted it to be like Empire Strikes Back was the last movie in the series, because I like this open-ended nature of like, I don't know what's going to happen to anyone. If it had ended after the snap, I would have been like, that is so cool. And the fact that like when the snap happened, we already knew that there were like 4 movies planned for like half of the people that got snapped, was just like, all right. I mean,
like Spider-Man, like, oh wait, they're already advertising Homecoming 2.
I agree with that completely, because like, you knew that they snapped away all the new people.
Yeah.
Well, I think
It's like all these people are coming
I
back.
think that's what was great. Have you seen the Firefly series and the movie Serenity?
I've seen Serenity, which I love, and I've seen sporadic episodes of Firefly. Weirdly, I love the movie Serenity and have had trouble getting into Firefly.
Well, you have to get past the first
Um,
4 episodes of Firefly, and once you do, it gets so good.
Well, then also I know that they released them in the wrong order.
Right. But I mean,
so
that was live when nobody
yeah, I've
watched
never.
it anyways. But yeah, when the DVD came out, it was all.
Yeah, but the movie Serenity, I
But see,
love.
that goes to that movie. Like in the movie, I mean, imagine watching the movie with 14 hours of backstory. And I feel bad that you got to miss out on that experience because you know, again, spoilers, but again, the movie's 15 years old. That moment, you know, when Wash gets gutted, right, by the reverse stick, right, pull.
Well, when he gets killed by Groot,
right,
is what you mean to say.
When Groot kills Wash, at that point, everybody's fair game, right? Like you're watching it, and even when Zoe gets slashed with that axe, and when I first watched it, I actually thought she got cut in half. Right.
Yeah.
And like everybody's death, you're like, okay, who are they going to kill next? You know, I mean, they've already killed Book, they've already killed Wash, you know, and it's just, it makes it that intense, you know, and you don't know, because again, you don't know if there's going to be another movie. You don't know what it is. You're watching this like, oh my God, they're going to kill everybody.
Yeah, I think that is what people loved so much about Game of Thrones, and then what I was so disappointed about with Game of Thrones in the last 2 or 3 seasons. Was the plot armor. It didn't have any plot armor when it started.
Yeah.
And then it had a lot of plot armor at the end.
I think that's what makes like you know, there's some shows where season finales get so exciting. Like Chris, did you ever watch Buffy and Angel?
I've only watched occasional episodes of Buffy when it's basically like, oh, you've got to watch this episode of Buffy, like Hush and stuff like that. So
yeah. So like
I watched like a couple of like season. I know that this is all I remember. She jumped off something and died.
Like 3 times.
She jumped off a big building or something and dove into like a portal. Is that a good summary of the entire run of Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
But like, I feel like they did like such a good job. Like, yeah, you had those seasons where it's like, okay, you have like your protected group.
Yeah.
But then like those finales, man, they get you like anxious because you don't know who's gonna make it out of the finale. You don't know who's like. That's where it gets kind of exciting. Like I still remember, Marco remember this, where in the finale of Buffy, there's a character that saves one character, and he's like, thanks, and then she just gets sliced in half, like out of nowhere, and it's like, what the hell just happened?
Well, to me, that's what was so great about one of the best written shows in a long time for me was Vampire Diaries, and it sounds bad. But they would burn through quality story arcs that you'd think, okay, this is the villain for the next three months, right? In the next 12 episodes. And they would just kill him 5 minutes later. This is the story that they're setting up for the next 4 to 5 episodes, and then dead. And then they were just, they would do season-long arcs in 3 episodes. And it was a roller coaster. And to me, I've watched so much TV and movies that can sit there. Like I just watched an episode of The Prodigal Son, right, which is on Fox, and they're showing it's a kind of a procedural. Here's the dead body, the cops are all around, and then there's the guy that steps into the frame that's not on the show, but you're like, that guy's been in 500 things, and they're like, yeah, that dude's the killer. And then come towards 20 minutes later, yep, he's the killer. You know, just
yeah.
And so with Vampire Diaries, though, the first 2 seasons, man, there was no way I could ever guess what the hell was going to happen next. And that was thrilling, you know. But
yeah, I mean, everything that's like storytelling these days, you have to sort of weigh that you're telling stories against the backdrop of like all the other stories that we've seen before. So if you want to be unpredictable, now you kind of have to know like the kinds of stories we've been telling. I mean, I had a similar feeling like that when I was watching Lost. At the end of, I think, season 3 or something, they just like got rid of 2 characters, and it turns out I think they had been like fired from the actual TV show, but it was cool because it was unexpected. And then around that time, Battlestar was ending, and I remember they got rid of Starbuck for a little while, and but when it happened, I was like, she's gonna be back in like 4 episodes. Like I didn't have a sense of real loss with that. Actually, I would say the best example of this is, I want to say season 2 or 3 of The Wire. There's a major character that just is gone, and I think David Simon is who created The Wire, and he was like, in interviews, people were like, "Well, he's not really gone, right? He's gonna come back." He's like, "No, he's gone."
Yeah, The Wire. That's 2 episodes in a row. Just shouting out to The Wire. You know, it's to me, it's top 5 all time. You know, show.
Yeah.
I got a new wire print that I'm excited to hang up, but I'm moving in the summer, moving soon, so I want to like not unpack it yet. But
Oh, you have a wire print.
An art print from the Wire.
Oh, nice.
I collect a lot of.
What is your top 5 shows?
Oh, well, Firefly, The Wire. I would throw Battlestar Galactica in there. Let's see. It kind of changes, like a new one that I just watched. I don't know if I wrote a review about it last week, but Wayne. Have you seen Wayne?
I don't even know
it
what
was
that is.
A YouTube Red show. You know, it's like 10 episodes. It's they've rebranded the show and premiered it on Amazon Prime. But it is so good. It's probably one of the best things I've seen in the last few years.
Cool. It's like Kick-Ass.
It's kind of like Kick-Ass. No, it's just got that, like it takes place like in a Boston area. Kid's dad dies of cancer, but he's like, the kid has kind of like a Batman type. It's kind of like a reverse Batman in a sense. Instead of him being a rich billionaire, he's a completely broke kid living on his own with no mother. Right? His dad passes, but like the villain of the show was like, when he was a kid, this guy took his mom and his dad's brand new car that he finally bought and paid for, Trans Am Gold, and ran off with his mother to Florida. And then the new guy sends a postcard to the dad every year with a picture of him in the car and his wife to kind of rub it into him.
God.
So when the guy dies of cancer, he sees the postcards and he decides he's going to go back and claim the car for his own. Right. But the thing is this kid, he doesn't feel pain. And anytime he sees injustice, he just starts a fight and just beats the shit out of everybody. Like he has like this code or whatever. And it's so good. It's on Amazon Prime right now.
Wasn't it Kick-Ass Doesn't Feel Pain?
Oh, maybe, I don't know. It doesn't. There's no superhero. Like Patrick Geller, we were talking about Patrick. Patrick's actually in the first 2 episodes, which was funny seeing Patrick with like a Southie Boston accent, you know, where he's like this evil landlord dude, you know, trying to collect the rent when the dad's in the living room dying of cancer. You know, he's just like, get me my money, you know.
So we got a couple questions for Chris.
Okay.
Chris, Mike wants to know what your weirdest fan encounter has been.
So I mean, I did a tour of a comedy musical, like a regional tour, and after the show, it was a parody of 50 Shades of Grey as a musical. And I played Christian Grey.
Oh.
And so we would go greet audience members as they left in the lobby to try to, like, you know, they'd take selfies and stuff like that. And 2 weird things happened in there. One is that a guy came up and said, "Oh, you remind me of the guy from The Hangover. You look just like him." And he meant Ken Jeong.
I was thinking Bradley Cooper, but I can see.
I was thinking you look like a weird Zach Galifianakis. So.
Yeah, I look more like Zach Galifianakis than I look like Ken Jeong, for sure. And then the other thing is that, so when I would do that show, a lot of fans of 50 Shades the book would come see it, and they would expect a certain kind of person would be playing Christian Grey, and they would be like very surprised when I was playing it. It was framed as like a surprise entrance, and I don't mean surprised in a good way. Like, a lot of people were disappointed when they saw me playing Christian Grey, but I had basically by the end of the show, I won a lot of people over,
Yeah.
and I had a lot of women, like wanting to take very close up selfies with me after the show. And one time, a lady that was drunk, like bit me hard in the shoulder for her selfie. So her selfie was like her like biting into my shoulder. So that was also strange. And then the other weird thing that happened to me recently, like maybe a year or two ago in Disneyland, was um this put a weird feeling on like the sense of being slightly famous, which is that I was eating like a corn dog on Main Street or something, and I heard like somebody yell out, "Hey, Chris!" And I turned, and from where the sound was coming from was like a group of like junior high school kids who were like laughing. And I think they had like Googled whether or not it was me that, from Superstore or whatever. And then just like the way you would do in junior high or high school, like yell out someone's name and make them turn.
Yeah, and see
But I
if they
remember,
move.
but I was like kind of humiliated. Like that. Like I felt really weird. And I was sitting alone by myself eating a corn dog. It felt kind of, that felt bad. It was just like, oh, it's when you become a little bit famous in a way, there's a lot of great things about it, but also, it's like this sense that people have like access to you in a way that you can't control when you're walking around.
Yeah, like somebody else sitting there that nobody knows eating a corn dog, nobody's going to have a way to look up their name.
Yeah. And also, actually, I think that same visit, someone like cut in line in front of us at Haunted Mansion, and I was about to like start yelling at them. And then when I said like, "Excuse me," and they were like, "Oh my God, are you from Superstore?" And I was like about to like chastise them. And of course I can't like be an asshole in public. But like things like that, like it's really like road rage if I get road rage about anything, I can't express it in any way because it's probably a good thing that I can't express it. So that's
you'll be the next YouTube video.
Well, we have another question. If you could be on any film or TV franchise, given the opportunity, what would you go for?
Oh, I can't remember the project I was just like reading. God, I was just reading or watching something where I was like, oh, I could play that guy. Oh, actually, I would love to do like a young Mr. Miyagi show if they did like a Cobra Kai spinoff.
That'd be kind of cool.
I'd love to do that, and I'd also like to do
Miyagi's real son like shows up.
What is the anime? Is it? It's not Airbender, is it? What's the
Avatar?
anime? Maybe is it Avatar? What's the anime where there's an old man that sings about his dead son? Someone will know it. It's his name is Iroh, Iroh.
Oh yeah, that's Avatar.
That's Avatar. I want to play that guy in like a live action. I want to sing that song that he sings.
So I think isn't Netflix the one that's supposedly producing the live action Avatar series? I think.
Yeah.
They're doing something.
The live action one right now.
Yeah, I just want to be that old guy and sing that song.
They're trying to fix the M. Night Shyamalan disaster of a movie.
Oh, right.
And that one we can all, I think, call that was.
Speaking of whitewashing, that was kind of a whitewashed.
Yeah, that was a weird. I'm a M. Night Shyamalan fan.
Yeah,
I don't know what he was doing with that. The different names and the different pronunciations and. It's when you're tackling something with that kind of fan base.
Yeah.
Don't take free reign.
Well, that's the thing is sometimes people have to have creative control so much that they don't want. Like I don't know why you would ever do anything if you want to change it so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so do you do any kind of writing? I know you're like in.
Yeah, I do some comedy writing and script writing stuff. I actually co-wrote the same people that we did the 50 Shades musical with. I ended up co-writing a musical comedy based on Game of Thrones, and that ran at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival for from 2015 or something until it ran a long time. And then this was insane because it was like a sketch show that was with the higher production values, and I think it's actually a really good show. Nice. But like in 2018, we did it in Scotland, and some talent scouts or the artistic director of the Sydney Opera House saw it, And in 2019, we did it at the Sydney Opera House.
Oh, nice.
I directed a musical at the Sydney Opera House and was in Sydney for a month working on the show. It was just like insane that this like very silly comedy show that we did ended up playing at that theater.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was great. We got like a hotel in Sydney, and it was just a dream, especially because I directed and I wasn't in it. All I had to do was direct the show, and then I had a month in Sydney just to do whatever I wanted.
Yeah, I love the Fringe Festival in New York. I actually produced a show for Tamar Underwood, I believe. He wrote this. It was a wrestling show, and I helped to pay for the ring. They had like an inside ring, and it was like a podcast about a guy who had killed somebody in the ring. You know, he was high on opioids, you know, and he killed his mentor live in the ring. And so he was doing a podcast like 10 years later. And when they would show all the flashbacks of all of his matches, they actually had a ring, and they would do the like live wrestling in the ring while they were telling the story.
Oh, cool.
And then I actually got to produce. Did you ever see the Brick Theater in Brooklyn? There was a show.
Yeah.
A show that I produced and actually brought it to New York Comic Con in 2013 or 2012, and they actually did the show live on stage at New York Comic Con, and that was a lot of fun. That was, like I said, I do things just for fun, and those were working with some off-Broadway stuff, and the Fringe Festival was a lot of fun experience.
Yeah, Fringes are great. I encourage everyone to go see stuff at their local Fringe
Yeah,
festival.
I tried writing something for it. I don't even remember what it was now, but
I mean, I would honestly, I'd encourage everybody to, especially like local U.S. Fringe festivals. A lot of them are pretty easy to get into, and I would suggest everyone to like. I mean, half the people at Fringe festivals sign up for slots before they even know what they're doing. Yeah. So to actually put up a show and to try to create it, I also think, going back to what we talked about before, I think if a lot more people were creating art, they'd be a lot more generous towards the art that they see.
Right. Well, because it teaches you empathy in a sense, because you have to have empathy when you're writing, because you have to see things from different points of view. You know what I mean? You can't, otherwise every character you would write would be exactly the same.
Yeah, I mean, I also just meant that like you understand how many things can go wrong in even trying to create a mediocre show.
I think that goes with everything. That goes like Marco and I talk all the time, since we my wife and I open up mystery boxes, and we have a Facebook community, and we notice the criticisms and the judgment that's out there to companies. And I see Marco sends me some of the judgments on his company. I talk to him about some of the judgments on these other companies, and the expectations that people have, where I try to tell them, like, go to a convention and try to get somebody's autograph and see if you're going to be getting this autograph for $30 shipped to your door. Like, you're not. Or Marco's $20. And there's just these criticisms of people's expectations when they have no experience in what goes into anything. Like you said, creating, writing a book, creating a show, putting a stage production together, getting an autograph signing put together. Just the packing and the labeling and the mailing of everything and what goes into that. I just think that there's a lack that we have as a society of empathetically putting ourselves into somebody else's shoes before judging them.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed is that people never really know what it takes to do any particular job. So whatever your occupation is, people outside of it just think it's either so easy or they don't understand why this can happen. And I'm talking about, like, my old job I was a web developer. And so, I mean, my dad sent me an email that was like, hey, I got this domain name. So what if I give it to you and then you turn it into a business like eBay? And I was like, so you registered a domain name and you think you've done 80% of the work towards creating eBay. And I think that's true for almost anything. I feel like we see that during the pandemic with like people who think they know better than scientists, right? I don't know what you guys do for, like on a day-to-day basis, but even like the mystery boxing thing, like you probably have something I've been really interested lately is, since everything is online now, there's so much content creation going online.
Mm-hmm.
It seems
You
like
want to start an OnlyFans?
Oh no! Here we go.
It seems like, well, it probably happens in OnlyFans worlds too. That it seems like it's mandatory when you create content now that you also have to manage a community. Right. And like I've been streaming on Twitch, like a very small audience, and there's times in there where I'm like, oh, this person seems more entitled to my time or attention than I expected. Like, the managing a community part, I don't know with your mystery box community, but like you might even have people that are like critical of the way you make your videos or something, and you're kind of like, whoa, like I'm just doing this, and I'm not like making $1 million a year doing this. It's this weird tension because I'm not sure that every content creator also wants to be like the leader of a community.
Right. No, and I don't think a lot of people realize. We put out 2 8 to 15-minute videos a day on YouTube. And I don't think people realize that each of those 8 to 15-minute videos takes like 2 hours in total with the recording and rendering, uploading, social media blasting. Like there's a lot of time that goes into it. And then you mess up one word or you mess up something and the people are jumping on you. And it's like, okay, like just enjoy the video.
Well, I learned that lesson in junior high. Right, I played basketball and I took an art class, and my basketball coach was the art teacher, and our assignment was to draw a painting, and it was going to be displayed in the library. So I drew my painting, and I said, "What do you think?" He goes, "Well, I would change this, this, and this." It was just like a basic tulip, right? Like just with a simple blue background. And so I went back and I changed it, went back again. What do you think? I would change this, this, and this. And by the third time after he said that, I was just like, fuck you. And I took it, I took stripes along the background. I put a handprint. I turned the sun into like this little beret and put a goatee on it. And I just, just whatever, through the whole thing. I'm like, now what do you think? And he didn't have anything to say.
But the question is, how many minutes did you get in the next week's basketball game?
Not that. Well, I got the same amount. But what was funny is they hung it up in the library. At the end of the year, they gave everybody an award in the art class. He gave an award to, except for me. But the librarian came up to me and said, more people stopped and looked at your painting than any other one, just because it was so insane. And then my mom said she had a psychiatrist friend look at it, and he said, yeah, he's definitely sexually frustrated.
Wait, how old were you?
This was like 8th grade.
I mean, that's a safe diagnosis of any 8th grade.
That's every 8th grade boy is sexually frustrated. Oh, all right. We got a couple more questions for you, Chris.
Sure.
So Nicholas, who you should know is our local resident, up and coming voice actor who we're molding to be a future famous guest on our show.
Oh, cool.
He's recently gotten his first 2 voice acting jobs, but he wants to know if you have any advice you'd be able to give somebody that is going into their first job, their first acting job, voice or regular.
I mean, I would say that if you have the script ahead of time, to be over prepared in terms of knowing it. And then I would say for voice acting and on camera acting, I would, especially in today's environment where we have a lot of technology that's pretty cheap at our disposal, you really need to get to know the sound of your own voice in this context. Like a lot of people hate hearing their voice recorded or seeing themselves on screen. And if you want to enter these fields, you have to get over that. Honestly, maybe he's already doing this, but I would say you should be doing a podcast or like in some way exposing your ear to your own instrument, like on a daily basis, because in the end, that instrument is going to be what makes you your money. and you have to be able to know what you can do and not do with that instrument, so that if they need a particular, like, you have to be supple with how you can change the sound that you create based on what that director says. And you want to, when you work your first couple of jobs, you want to be so easy to work with and so responsive to their feedback that they want to bring you back the next time. Like, from a TV perspective, I like you basically just have to be the most wonderful person to work with possible, so that the next time they consider you, they're like, oh yeah, that person. They were so, like, you don't want to ever think of you as being like, oh, they were great, but they were kind of a pain in the ass to work with. But some of that comes from, like I said, the familiarity with your own instrument. Like, I'm very in certain, like, on-camera contexts, I'm very aware of, like, what I can portray on screen in terms of, like, the instrument being like my face. So to a level that I think a lot of people don't think about. But, like, just as an example, there's two things I can think of that, like, kind of go in that direction. And I think these are, for Nicholas, these are things that you would only learn by experience in terms of what you yourself can do. But, like, I'm pretty sure I've gotten jobs sometimes because in the audition, I would just, like, overemphasize, like, the consonant in a word. So if I would say, like, you know what, I think you should get out. I might say it like, I think you should get out, like that. And just in terms of it being, like, making the writing seem better than maybe it is or whatever. And I think that I have gotten at least callbacks from there. There's, like, a thing I do that I feel is very effective, which is, like, I just really slow blink at the end of a take. So, like, I think I've gotten a callback just by going, like, I mean, I don't think that's a good idea. Like that. And the ability to, like, basically, like, try not to make it seem so forced, but in the context of a character, but to also to deliver it, like, in the context of a take, when you got to do it with the right timing so it doesn't get cut off, and, like, all that stuff is just stuff you learn from, like, watching yourself over and over and over and over.
I can say, like, almost a lot of your characters is all about timing and reactions, and a lot of the stuff that I've seen you in, you know.
Yeah, I try to. I try not to be super obvious about it, but I really try to bring, like, a precision to my craft in terms of what I'm. And honestly, on a TV set, really all you're doing is you're giving the editor stuff to work with. So you're not going to be able to decide which one of your takes is the one that they use in a TV show. So your job is to, like, give them a sort of menu of, like, here's some takes that I think would work for this. And I've even had a couple times, I'd say some of the bigger tensions that I've had in certain jobs that I've had would be, like, where I felt that the say, like, the three slightly different choices that I was making, that the director was restricting me in a way that I was like, I don't think any of these is good when you see it in the editing suite. Like, I don't think that these are right for how I can do this moment for you to, like, put the scene together cleanly. Like, there's sometimes when this is more apparent when I've shot, like, student projects or stuff, or favors for friends. There's times when you shoot something and you're like, this isn't going to match it. Like, the rhythm of this doesn't match what just happened. Like, I don't think this is going to cut together very well. By the way, that also goes to, like, making your own stuff and editing your own stuff and learning about, like, how the work that actors put on camera, like, fits together when you edit it in Final Cut or whatever. Like, this is also a small thing, but, like, for a lot of shoots, and sometimes the timing doesn't matter that much in terms of, like, pace. So if you come from theater or live comedy, you get used to, like, clipping along really, fast, that things seem wittier when you're, like, really on top of each other in terms of dialogue. But sometimes in some sets, like, they don't want that because they can create that with the edit. And they don't need you, like, talking over the end of someone's sentence because, like, the audio is going to be bad, like, or it's going to lock them into, like, taking those two parts together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's funny because, like I said, I was working with a lot of the actors and off-Broadway stuff, and This is back when SAG and AFTRA were two separate things, and I kept seeing the writing on the wall. I was like, when people would ask, like, "What is it? How do I become an actor? How do I do this?" I'm like, "Man, just grab a camera and film something every single day.
Yeah.
Just no matter if it's crap, just film something every day. Put it out there. You'll get better and better. And and I would just film stuff and test like what I was doing in the script writing at the UCB, just to see what it looked like on paper versus what it would look like in film.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, you remember Desiree and Oscar?
Yeah.
I had them come to my office once, and we filmed this whole like skit that I wrote about. They're basically two art critics, and they both have different takes on the same painting. And Desiree goes off on like this whole tangent about how it's talking about modern family life and blah blah blah. And it's basically, then you hear a school bell, and it's like a kindergarten art show. And it turns around and you see the painting, and it's just like a stick figure of the kid with his two moms. And
yeah, that reminds me of the movie My Kid Could Paint That. Have you guys ever seen that?
No.
It was a documentary about like this kid that was like, I want to say 5 or 6, that they were like, look at this amazing work that she's creating.
Yeah.
And the actual art world was like buying and selling her stuff for like thousands of dollars. And then the question of the documentary is she actually making these paintings, or is one of the parents like faking it? It was really fascinating.
My whole thing with writing is I always want to play with perception. I want you to go in and, like, when I wrote that, I want you to think that they're critiquing something real, right? Like it's a real art gallery, it's a real opening, it's a real thing. And then, but once you pan around and see the actual photo or the painting, it's nothing like what you thought it was going to be, right? And everything I wrote or would work on, that's always how the approach that I would take.
Right.
Which reminds me, is like I was thinking when I was asking about writing, I was thinking, you know what they need nowadays, or as far as the new sitcom, is a sitcom about a throuple. We'll call it throuple, like a whole new Three's Company type of thing, because that's the biggest thing out there right now. We see everywhere is like thruples, and I think it would actually make a really good.
This sounds like an FX show, not a CBS
Well,
show.
I was thinking is if you did it like like say you had a couple, like a guy, a man and a woman, then another woman who came in and had a kid, but she was almost like asexual, right? She wasn't really attracted to men or women or even like sex, but they all three came together out of like the wanting to be part of something. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I mean this sounds like a very strange Penthouse letter that you're writing.
There we go. I mean, old habits.
How many thruples are there? How many heterosexual thruples are there out there, or hetero?
I think a heterosexual throuple is a sister wife, and that's that's already a show.
Well, I mean, there was Big Love, but
I mean, there's a lot of. I would say I actually know a lot of like gay. I heard triad is what I really hear more than throuple.
Triad's the big one. Triad is because that's like the closed thing of just 3 people.
I mean, you probably got a bunch of those in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, that's where we created it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's organ love there.
But I know them to be more like 3 guy things. Like, how many of them are like 2 men and a woman, or 2 women and a man?
I didn't research this. It was something that popped in my head like 2 days ago. I was watching like Be Positive. Oh. I was like, man, all these CBS sitcoms that come out are so generic. Like, have you watched Be Positive?
I have not. My friend Thomas is on.
Right,
that,
Thomas Middleton or Middleton.
Yeah, Middleditch.
But like when he goes in,
so I'm sure I'll love it when.
He goes into his dialysis, right? And you have the dentist who's all nervous, scared about everything, right? Like your typical nerd dentist doctor character, right? Then you have the black guy who's obviously an ex-sports athlete, right? Like the first time you meet him, they're like, you don't know who I am? I played for the Seahawks, And then you have the woman who comes in, and obviously she's the overpowered lawyer who's in this woman in a man's world job. You know what I mean? Like the characters are so stereotypical, like to a T. Like they didn't even try to flesh them out or even try to come up with something unique or something, and it just drove me nuts.
Right, and you immediately went to the idea of a throuple.
Exactly. I'm like, well, no, it's just like if this is a show, what else could be a show? And I just saw like a documentary or something that popped up about throuples, and I'm like, you know what? They had Three's Company. They could do probably another sitcom about, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
and then Chris, if you notice, as we really get into it, then he like shuts it down and goes to be positive. But we were getting like into the real, like the literal meat of the throuple.
Right, the actual logistics of it all.
The actual logistics. We were about to break it down, and then Marco pumped the brakes on it.
Well, I guess theoretically, no throuple could really be completely heterosexual if it was a full three-way throuple.
Yeah, that's where you get into that, like that. I don't even know if it's still on, but there was that Sister Wives show about like the couples where the wives were friends, but it was just for the guy thing. So
yeah, I mean those always seem like
thing. But like a true throuple, there's nobody in. You can't. All three people cannot be straight.
Right.
So totally different.
See, that's why I was saying.
Who knew this kind of content today?
Which brings us up to the 7 o'clock, or I guess it's 6 o'clock as this time.
Yeah. So here, I got a perfect question to end it with.
Okay.
Aaron wants to know. This is probably the toughest question you've ever gotten in your entire life.
Oh.
If Cobra Kai was real and you were on it, which sensei would you choose?
What are the choices? Is it Ralph Macchio or
William Zabka, or Martin Kove?
Can I say I would be in Jackie Chan's sense? Because I think that
new school.
I think the 2010 Karate Kid is actually very underrated. I think it's actually really good.
What? I agree with you. I don't. That goes again to where people had their expectations, and I feel like they harshly judge something that they didn't need to harshly judge.
Well, I think that the 2010 Karate Kid is very Chinese, so I love seeing a lot of like genuine culture in it, and it has a certain authenticity because Jackie Chan's in it, and he's bringing a lot of like, oh, this is an actual dude who can actually do this stuff. And I think I appreciate it because growing up, the whole wash of like martial arts is very much like a muddied water of like karate, which is Japanese, and kung fu, which is Chinese, and taekwondo, which is Korean. And growing up as a kid, it's just like, oh, it's all just like martial arts or whatever. So that 2010 Karate Kid, I just appreciate because it's very specific about. It actually takes place, I believe, in Beijing, and it's like, you know, it has more specificity. One thing that's kind of weird to me is how Karate Kid movies became this thing, and now they've returned as this like new show, and it's a very not extremely Asian experience. So it's kind of weird. It would be like if there was a whole family franchise that we grew up with that got brought back, and it was all about like hip hop music. If it was the equivalent of like Fresh Prince, but it had very few black people in it. Like
it's the whole white suburban strip mall.
Yeah,
suburban strip mall had a karate place back then. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean that's part of it too. Is that like, you know, Bruce Lee became really popular, and I think that it like sparked a lot of like interest in that kind of stuff over the decades, right? But it is also kind of strange to have like, oh, we've got like a United States cultural like touchstone that like all these people know about, like Karate Kid, and really most of it is like there's Pat Morita and there's Jackie Chan in the 2010 remake, and there's some people here and there, but like it's not an overarchingly like Asian experience, that cultural artifact, you know? So that feels a little strange to me, that it's like, hey, we took like a major part of like Asian culture and made like a bunch of art around it, and like we didn't ever really involve Asian people within it.
We actually talked about this our last episode. We had an author on the show, and we were actually talking about he had Marco, it was him who had the problem with
Firefly.
Serenity and Firefly, right? Yeah. So he had a big problem with Serenity and Firefly, that there's this whole thing about how Chinese culture has kind of merged
Oh,
into
yeah.
America, and
they kind of speak Mandarin.
there's nobody Asian in the show
except for the stall, like when they get off at the one place and
Yeah.
the stalls that are selling dog meat. That's
Yeah,
the
it's
only
it's like
Asian
where-
people in like the entire
Yeah.
series.
Well, I mean, that's true of a lot of sci-fi in general, including Star Wars. You know, just like
Yeah,
that Star Wars essentially all is like these Kurosawa samurai archetypes.
Yeah, the Jedi.
Yeah. But I mean, that's probably a whole nother 2 hours discussion.
Then we can really get into the washing of shows.
Well, to me, the one thing that always bothered me about the Karate Kid type movies is here you have these stories where you have this kid who spends a summer learning something and then all of a sudden can take on these people who've been doing it on their whole lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, wait a second. Like, how did...
That's how good a teacher Mr. Miyagi
Is that what it was?
Yeah, obviously, Marco.
Oh, by the way, I'll say a modern counter or like a bizarro image version of the same thing is when I saw that movie Ready Player One. Ready Player One is about this future that our society is like turned into with all this like pop culture references, and Ready Player One has almost zero hip hop influence in it of any kind. Like
That's a really good point.
Like there is almost no like black cultural presence in Ready Player One at all. And it has even less than we have right now. Because like right now, our pop music is extremely hip hop influenced. The music that like your children and grandchildren listen to is like all these hip hop artists that you've never heard of, you know? And so the idea that somehow like in 100 years or whatever, people are still going to remember like Pop-Tarts and Land of the Lost and all the other pop culture references in Ready Player One, but not like Wu-Tang Clan or, you know what I mean? Like it was,
Well, I think
that struck me as being really absent.
Well, in the book, I don't know if they translated it in the movie, right? The guy was a programmer and grew up in the 80s and loved everything 80s. And so when he gave away his $1 trillion fortune and the keys to the empire, everything he created was based in the 80s, right? So everybody had to go learn everything they could about the 80s that was referenced in his almanac of the 80s. And apparently, like you said, he didn't listen to hip hop. But so that's why
apparently he missed Rum DMC and
Sir Mix-a-Lot.
You know,
no,
Dougie Fresh and all that.
One of the things that reminded me of the throuple was your characters in the you guys had like a anti-throuple, like where you guys just kept switching off in Superstore.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I mean, but it was a relationship between the three of you. You know, and which to me, I was watching that show. I'm like, man, this has to be the most disrespected character of all time. Like, if you haven't seen it, and there's this really weird girl who on Superstore that everybody kind of shits on, and she falls in love with Chris's character, right? Who, and then there's this other girl in the store who also likes Chris's character, and so.
Which is, by the way, something that happens to me all the time. Right. Multiple women falling in love with me.
Well, obviously, they saw your performance of 50 Shades of Grey.
That's right.
That's how they were drawn
in. So, in one of the episodes, they force her because when they find out that she likes the both of them like it, they force the girl into a coin flip for him. And then she loses and has to goes up to him. We can't get married or we can't be together because I lost the coin flip. And you're like,
and also I respect the coin flip as well.
And so you move in with her.
The power of the coin is important to acknowledge.
And so that got me thinking about the throuple, I think, is too, is when we were talking about having you on and stuff like that. And I was like, that character and then that relationship of you three. Like, anyway, like if you three had to live in the same house together.
Yeah, the secret backstory is that my character is the son of Harvey Dent. And so I have to respect for coin flips, just the same way Two-Face does. They've never revealed that part of my character, but that's the
That was definitely in the pre-script.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
warned you, man, that we have to hard cut these shows. Otherwise, we could go on for hours, man. Like me and
sure.
Michael, we totally could just keep going for an hour, 2 hours. I mean, we even did a 3-hour show once, I think.
Yeah, we
Well, it's been
and then
really fun.
I get in trouble.
But thank you for coming on. We'll definitely have to have you on again if you're open to that.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And everybody, thanks again for watching, everybody. And check
Yeah,
out.
thanks for the questions.
Yeah. And hopefully it was a little different. Like I said, we improv like the entire show. So it's like we never know where it's going to go from thruples to whatever else we talked about. The Wire.
Thruples to